We are talking 203k's.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We are really glad you're here today because we are tackling a problem that I think pretty much everyone listening has felt at some point. You know that specific type of doom scrolling?
You mean the 11 Bono Euro PM Zillow scroll?
Exactly. You are lying in bed, the blue light is just burning your retinas, and you're looking at housing inventory. And it feels like you have two terrible options. Option A is the turnkey home. It's gorgeous, it's staged, it smells like vanilla cookies, and it has like 17 offers on it.
And is going for $50,000 over asking. The bidding war trap.
Right. And then there's option B, the houses that are actually in your budget. But, you know, they have peeling paint, the kitchen looks like it's from the Nixon administration.
And there's a smell you can't quite identify.
Yeah.
And you usually swipe left immediately.
We all do. We are trained to look for the pretty product, but what if I told you there's a hidden inventory that most people are just too scared to touch?
A way to take that option B, the ugly duckling, and turn it into option A without breaking the bank.
Yes. And that is the promise of the FHA 203k loan. It's a tool that lets you buy a house that needs work and finance the renovation costs into one single mortgage.
But let's be honest, FHA 203k is a terrible name.
It's awful. It sounds like a tax form or, I don't know, a droid from Star Wars. It sounds complicated.
And it is bureaucratic.
Yeah.
We aren't going to lie to you today. It is a government-backed loan, so it comes with red tape. But it is also one of the few reliable ways to manufacture equity.
In a market where it's almost impossible to find. And that is our mission today. We are not just going to read the HUD handbook to you.
No.
We've acted as content strategists here. We've analyzed transcripts from 4 in-depth interviews with absolute pros who live in these trenches.
We're talking people who actually get these deals to the closing table, which is a whole skill set on its own.
It is. We've got insights from Dana Jones and Nate Hayes, 2 powerhouse realtors, Paul Weldon, a top-tier educator, and Tamika Lowe, who is this amazing hybrid of a contractor and a realtor.
So we've taken all their expertise, thousands of words, and distilled it down to the top 5 burning questions people actually have.
We are going to strip away the jargon and look at the risks, the rewards, and the reality. We're talking money, uninsurable properties, and the team you need to pull this off.
And I think we have to start with the biggest source of anxiety.
The money.
The money.
Let's do it. FAQ number 1. How much renovation money can I really get? Because I think there's this fantasy, probably fueled by reality TV,
Oh, for sure.
that the bank just hands you a briefcase full of cash and says, go make it pretty.
That is the HGTV fantasy and is the quickest way to get into serious trouble. Tamika Lowe was so blunt about this in her interview. She basically says there is no blank check.
Okay, so walk us through the mechanics. If I buy a house for $200,000 and it needs $50,000 of work, how does the math actually work?
Well, it's not just $200,000 plus $50,000. There's this hidden variable called the contingency reserve. Tamika really highlighted this, and it's critical.
Contingency reserve. That sounds like bank speak for we're holding your money.
It sort of is. But think about it. When you tear down a wall in a house built in, say, 1940, what do you find?
Nothing good.
Exactly. You find latent defects. Rotted studs, old knob and tube wiring, maybe some mold. The bank knows this, so they mandate a buffer, usually 10 to 20% of the renovation budget, that just sits there, just in case.
So if my renovation budget is $50,000, the bank might require an extra $5,000 or $10,000 set aside.
Correct. And that eats into your borrowing power. But here's the kicker that Tamika emphasized, and this is the part that scares people. What happens if you blow through that reserve?
I'm assuming the bank lends you more money. I mean, they want the house finished, right?
You would think so, but no. Tamika was very clear. If your repairs go over the loan amount plus that reserve, the difference comes out of your pocket immediately.
Ouch. So if I have bad planning or my contractor underestimates the job by like 15 grand, I'm writing a personal check for that.
Yes. The bank caps their risk. You hold the bag for the excess. And that's why your scope of work has to be just bulletproof before you even close.
There's another piece here I found really interesting, the draw system. Tamika mentioned this isn't for the weak when it comes to cash flow. Why is that?
This is a huge misconception. In a normal renovation, you hire a contractor and they say, okay, give me 50% down.
Standard practice. You write in the check, they go to the store.
You can't do that with a 203k. The bank does not advance money. It is strictly a reimbursement system.
Wait, so the contractor has to do the work first?
Exactly. The contractor buys the materials, pays their crew, hangs the drywall, then an inspector comes out, verifies it's done correctly, and only then does the bank cut a check.
Wow. That feels like it would eliminate a lot of contractors.
It eliminates about 80% of them. You can't hire a check in a truck who needs your deposit to pay for gas. You need a contractor with the business credit and cash flow to float the project for weeks.
That is a huge insight. So the big takeaway here seems to be that this is a structured financial tool, not a magic wand.
Precisely. Your financial safety comes from a precise scope of work and a contractor who acts like a real business, not just a handyman. If you go in thinking it's a loose pot of money, you are going to fail.
Okay, let's move to FAQ number 2. We've talked about the money, but what about the house itself? When people hear renovation loan, they picture a gut job.
Yeah, the shack misconception. Do I have to buy a total disaster to use this?
Wait, is this program only for people who want to suffer?
Not at all. And this is where the strategy gets really interesting for a normal buyer. Dana Jones, the realtor from Chicago, had this brilliant concept she called creative intellect.
I love that phrase. It sounds fancy, but what does it really mean?
She argues that when you buy a turnkey flip, that house that smells like fresh paint, you are paying a premium, but you are also paying for their creative intellect, their choice of tile, their cabinets, their gray flooring.
Which is usually the most generic, neutral stuff they could find on sale.
Often, yeah. Dana's point is, why pay a premium for someone else's generic taste? The 203K lets you buy a house that's structurally sound, but just dated.
The house with the shag carpet and the pink bathroom tiles.
Exactly. That house sits on the market because it's ugly. It's perfectly safe, but it's ugly. With this loan, you're buying the ability to install your hardwood floors, your countertops, your style.
So you're building equity by forcing appreciation instead of just paying retail for someone else's work.
Right. But it doesn't have to be a massive project. Tamika made a really important distinction here between the two types of 203K loans. There's the standard one for the big, stuff-moving walls, fixing foundations.
The gut jobs.
Right. But then there's the limited 203K.
This used to be called the Streamline, right?
Correct. The limited is purely for cosmetics. New kitchen, new bath, new roof, new floors, painting. No structural engineering. The paperwork is lighter and the process is faster.
So I could find a solid house in a great school district that just looks tired, use a limited 203K to refresh it, and get it for under market value because nobody else wanted the hassle.
That is the play. You stop looking for the perfect house and start looking for the perfect location. The 203K turns their house into your home.
Okay, that sounds great on paper, but I can hear the skepticism. People are thinking, if it's this easy, why isn't everyone doing it? Which brings us to FAQ number 3, the pain factor.
I'm signing up for a nightmare.
Does a 203K take longer or cost more than a regular mortgage? Paul Weldon, the educator, was pretty funny about this. He talked about the HGTV effect.
It's a real problem. We watch these shows where they renovate a whole house in 22 minutes. If they find a crack in the foundation, they look worried for the commercial break, and then it's fixed.
And they're under budget. Paul points out that reality TV edits out the 3 weeks waiting for a permit. It edits out the arguments with the city, the delays.
Real life has speed bumps. And Nate Hayes, who is an investor and has done this many times, she didn't sugarcoat it. She called it a headache. She said flat out, it is not a cakewalk.
So what's the biggest bottleneck? Is it the bank?
Surprisingly, no. It's usually the municipality and the supply chain. You're at the mercy of the city inspector's schedule and materials. Tamika told that horror story about the doors.
The 12 doors, that was wild.
Yeah, so she was managing a project that needed 12 standard interior doors. Suddenly, supply chain issues hit, and the price jumped to something like $300 a door.
And the delivery date got pushed back weeks. That destroys a budget and a timeline all at once.
It does. And construction is sequential. If the doors aren't there, the trim guy can't finish. If the trim isn't done, the painter can't start. It's a domino effect.
I have to ask the cynic's question. If it involves this much stress and potential for delay, why bother? Why not just buy the turnkey house?
Well, Nady gave the ultimate counter-argument. She said, despite the headache, she hasn't paid a mortgage in 11 years.
11 years? How is that even possible?
Because of the equity she built and the rental income she generates from the property she fixed up, she traded 6 months of headache for a decade of financial freedom.
That is a powerful ROI. It reframes the stress.
Exactly. The insight here is, patience pays dividends. The headache is the price of admission for instant equity.
Yeah.
You are being paid to handle the stress that other people refuse to.
That leads perfectly into the strategy of how she did that, because she wasn't just fixing up a kitchen, was she? This brings us to FAQ number 4. What kinds of repairs and upgrades are actually allowed?
And this is where we move from home improvement to wealth building. The 203K has 2 superpowers. The first is solving the uninsurable problem.
Explain that. What makes a house uninsurable?
Paul shared a story about a client, Jim Hunter. Jim wanted to buy this house, but it was a disaster. Peeling paint everywhere, no water heater, serious safety hazards.
And for an FHA loan, peeling paint is a deal breaker, right? Because of lead risk.
It's an automatic failure. A normal bank won't lend on a house with health and safety issues, because if they foreclose, they can't sell it easily.
Which usually means only cash buyers, investors can buy it.
Correct. The seller lists it as cash only. But the 203K allowed Jim to finance the lead paint remediation and the new water heater into the loan. It basically cures the defect.
So Jim could buy the cash-only house without having all the cash.
Exactly. It allowed a regular guy to compete for a property that regular banks had written off. It opens up a huge amount of inventory.
That is a game changer. And the second superpower, you mentioned today, hasn't paid a mortgage in 11 years.
That is house hacking.
I hear this term everywhere. How does it apply here?
A lot of people don't know this, but FHA loans let you buy properties with up to 4 units. A duplex, triplex, or a fourplex. And you can still use the low 3.5% down payment.
So you aren't limited to a single-family house?
No. So Nade bought a 3-family home that was in bad shape. She used the 203K to renovate all 3 units. She moved into one and rented out the other 2.
And the rent from the neighbors covers the mortgage.
In her case, it covered the mortgage and then some. I mean, listen to these numbers. She bought it for around $220,000 during a market crash. Today, it's worth around $650,000.
That's incredible. She basically used the bank's money to buy a small apartment building, fix it up, and let the tenants pay off her debt.
And she couldn't have done it without the 203K because she didn't have the cash to fix the place up herself.
So the takeaway here is that this isn't just for pretty kitchens. It's a strategic bypass for safety issues and a gateway to becoming a landlord.
It puts you in the game when you otherwise wouldn't have the capital to compete with investors.
Okay, but this brings us to the final and probably most important hurdle. I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, I'm not a contractor. I don't know how to spot lead paint. Who is looking out for me?
FAQ number 5. Who manages the renovation process?
Because the fear is you hire a contractor and they do a terrible job. Or they ghost you. Or run off with materials.
This is where the team concept is vital. Dana Jones used a great sports analogy. She called the realtor the point guard.
I like that. They run the play.
She said you cannot just use your cousin who got their real estate license last week. You need an agent who specifically knows how to structure a 203K contract. If they don't, the deal will die before it even starts.
But the realtor isn't a construction expert. They can't tell me if a wall is load-bearing.
No. And that is why Paul Weldon highlighted a very specific role that most people have never heard of, the HUD consultant.
Is that the same as a home inspector?
No, and it is crucial to understand the difference. A home inspector tells you what's wrong. A HUD consultant tells you how much it costs to fix and prepares the official work write-up for the bank.
So they're like a project manager on the bank side?
Yes. They do a feasibility analysis before you even buy. They walk through and say, okay, you want to move this wall? That's $5 grand. New roof? That's 12. This project is feasible. Or they tell you to run away.
That provides a huge amount of peace of mind. You aren't just guessing.
And then the final line of defense is the paperwork itself. Tamika Lowe was adamant about this. She said, bad paperwork leads to court.
And how does the 203K prevent that?
Because the bank controls the money. Remember that draw system. The contractor doesn't get paid until the HUD consultant verifies the work is done. If the work is shoddy, the check doesn't get cut.
So the bank is essentially acting as your enforcer.
Exactly. You are leveraging the bank's selfishness. They don't want a bad house either. Their strictness is your safety net.
So the insight here is, you're the CEO of this project, but you don't have to be the expert. Your safety net is that specialized team, the consultant, the lender, and the contractor.
You're hiring expertise, not just labor.
So let's zoom out. We've covered the money, the scope, the timeline, the strategy, and the team.
It's a lot, I know.
It is. But when you look at it all together, there is a fascinating theme here. The things people complain about with the 203K, the red tape, the inspections, the slow timeline.
They're features, not bugs.
Exactly. They are designed to stop you from making a bad investment.
Think about it. If a bank refuses to lend on a project because the bid is too low or because the HUD consultant says the foundation is too risky, were they being annoying? Or did they just save you from bankruptcy?
They saved you. They prevented you from buying a money pit.
The friction is a safety mechanism. And for people willing to endure that friction, the reward is what Aaron, the interviewer in our sources, kept coming back to: generational wealth.
It feels like a buzzword, but in this context, it's real math.
It is. The 203k allows normal people with a 3.5% down payment to compete with cash investors. This loan gives you the cash to fix the ugly house, but spreads it out over 30 years.
It levels the playing field.
I'd argue it tilts the field in your favor, because you, as an owner-occupant, have better financing terms than most investors do.
So here is the provocative question I want to leave our listeners with today. We spend so much energy looking for the perfect home. We swipe left on anything that looks like work.
We shop for homes like we shop for shoes. We want them to fit perfectly right out of the box.
But if you stopped looking for a home that is a finished consumer product, which just means you're paying for someone else's markup, and started looking for an asset where you could manufacture your own equity, how much faster could you achieve financial freedom?
Are you buying a place to sleep, or are you buying a financial future? That is the choice.
If you are inspired, go find your point guard. Find a realtor who knows what a 203k is. Don't settle for the scraps. Create what you want.
And please, verify your contractors.
Yes, listen to Tamika. Verify the contractors. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We will catch you on the next one.
Take care.